asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
Let's welcome back our next guest of the programme. No stranger to you, great friend of mine and a brilliant geopolitical analyst. He really is. Subscribe to him by going to hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. I'll say that again, hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. He's written several brilliant books, including the Federal Reserve Cartel, Big Oil and their bankers in the Persian Gulf, and others. hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com, a staple on Press TV and RT and other networks. Let's welcome back to the show, live from Missouri, our friend Dean Henderson. Dean, welcome back.
Hey Richie, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I was speculating just before I took an ad break there, just before I took a musical break, that we're in a very bad place. And I think it's because apathy reigns at the moment. I kind of posited the notion that if people really were listening to mainstream media, and if they really believed that Assad was a bad man who was gassing his own people, and if they really believed that the Palestinians were bad bastards who were hell-bent on killing the Israelis, that would be better for us. Because if people weren't apathetic and really believed in all these bad dictators, it would be easier for us to engage them and to get involved in a dialogue with them. What we have is apathy, Dean. I put it to you that 52 dead today in Palestine, that total is going to rise, 2,500 injured. People couldn't care less, Dean. What do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, Richie, that's right. In the West, people don't care. And you have to lay it at the hands of the oligarchy again, because people are being the lies just keep getting more frequent. They get bigger. They're consistent. They're steady. It's drip, drip. And if you even watch a second of mainstream media or listen to it, you're just being lied to. The second thing is people are just really economically being deprived right now. Around here, if you go to town on the first of the month, that's when the welfare checks come out. That's when the Social Security checks come out. That's when some people get paid a paycheck. You can't hardly drive, and it's not a busy place here, but the roads are packed, the stores are packed, because people are literally having to sit around waiting for the first of the month, whether they're on welfare or have a job or are old people on Social Security. They're just barely making ends meet. So how are these people ever going to have the time even to seek out the Richie Allen Show, to seek out the truth on the internet? Those two things are huge. All that being said, people have to do it because this is a battle between good and evil. The lines are drawn. There's no middle ground anymore. And, this is the work of the devil or the aliens or the Rothschilds or the City of London or whatever you want to call it. But these people traffic in organs. These people have black masses where babies are sacrificed. These people create wars to make money for themselves and their buddies. These people are evil, no matter if there was evil in this world to begin with or not. And I tend not to think there probably was not. But that doesn't even matter because this is evil. And if you're good, you better start fighting, because a lot of us are just getting pretty tired of doing all the fighting. And while you sit on the sidelines, and 52 dead in Palestine today, not cool.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for dropping that on you, that negative start to the conversation. It just occurred to me today, the BBC and Sky News did its job today for the first time as long as I can remember. They had journalists at field hospitals in Gaza and outside Gaza and in Ramallah. And they were actually reporting on people coming in on stretchers. And it was really good stuff by the BBC, and in fairness, particularly Sky News, Murdoch's Sky News. Their reporter was standing there and they were clearly showing these men and these children coming in on stretchers. I suppose the narrative for the viewer is, well, these people aren't monsters. They don't look like monsters. They look like ordinary people. They're coming in with holes in their chests, holes in their legs. And I thought, fair play to Sky News. Okay, they're not giving you the background. They're not telling you the truth about why it's going on. but it kind of reminded me of old school Vietnam reporting, Dean. It was in your face today. They showed you, and I thought, what's going on? Why are they doing that? And then, you know, that kind of a moment of euphoria. And then I kind of got depressed, and I thought, well, people just don't care. They'll just switch over to the Children's Channel or the Disney Network or whatever, you know. But anyway, I don't mean to be all depressing on you today. What I wonder, will what's happening today, will it be the kind of final domino for the Trump diehards who still cling to this, he's a good guy, QAnon stuff, which drives me crazy, this QAnon thing. He's in there, and he's a kind of a stealthy, kind of a dark knight Trump, and he's going to destroy the whole thing from within. Surely these people can't be serious, number one, and surely on a day like today, they've got to see, right, we were wrong about him. What do you think?
Well, you know, it won't make any difference. I know these kind of people. It's the same kind of people who, you know, these hardcore believe in nothing Democrats who insist that the Russians are behind it all. Every bush, every tree, every rock, you know, Putin's behind it. Even though Alpha Bank, which is at the center of Russiagate, is basically a Ukrainian bank whose owners are being kicked out of Russia as we speak by Putin. Mikhail Friedman applying for permanent residency in, guess where, City of London. So anyway, for all you Trump people out, if there's any of you Trump people out there, listen to Richie's show. I got the smoking gun here if you want to hear it. And you're just going to have to Google it and go there yourself and read this article. It's called The Donald's Trump Card. It's in Bloomberg News, March 22nd, 1992. And guess what happened in 1987 to Donald Trump? He was a belly up, borderline bankruptcy. So he goes and buys Resorts International. Now, I don't know who's familiar with Resorts International, but this is an old company that was started by David Rockefeller, Allen Dulles, back in the 50s as the Mary Carter Paint Company. Later became Resorts International. CEO was Meyer Lansky, who's one of the most notorious mafia bosses ever in the world. Tied with Tibor Rosenbaum. Both of these guys are Mossad agents, upper level. Laundromat for dirty money of all kinds was Resorts International. So Trump buys 93% of the common stock in this in 1987. Mysteriously the same year, this is when he starts the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. So the Resorts International is moving into Atlantic City. They're trying to get a laundromat going on the East Coast. So they got one in Vegas and they got one on the East Coast then. So then Trump's, when he does this, even though he does this, he's teetering on the borderline of bankruptcy. And so why is he going buying 93% of the common stock of Resorts International at the same time he can barely afford to pay his bills? Very interesting. Well, anyway, here comes Wilbur Ross, current Commerce Secretary, and his bank that he worked for at the time. Mr. Wilbur Ross worked for Rothschild Incorporated. That's right. According to Bloomberg News, March 22nd, 1992, Rothschild Incorporated is the bank that bailed Donald Trump out of all his woes in 1992. And if anybody wants to just read the article, for any of you Trumpistas out there who think he's going to save the world and he's going to take down the bankers and he's going to expose 9/11, he's going to do all this stuff while all the time moving the embassy to Jerusalem because Jared Kushner, the new Henry Kissinger, told him to do so, while threatening Iran. Oh, he throws North Korea a bone, big deal, doesn't matter. The city of London's not ready for that anyway. It doesn't matter. There's no oil in North Korea. It's a red herring. It's just a red herring to get everybody thrown off. So, of course, Trump is controlled. He's always been controlled ever since 1987 by these people, by the Rothschilds, directly. There's your direct connection to the Rothschilds. I don't know what else anybody could be smoking or be on to not just go ahead and read that article. Check it out. Now, Wilbur Ross became Commerce Secretary for that very reason. And it's no coincidence that he's being surrounded by Pompeo now and Bolton and all these neocons who were part of that project for a new American century way back, in the Bush years when they wrote up their little game plan to take out 7 Middle Eastern nations. The only one left's Iran. It's all right there. The neocons, these neocons like Bolton, these guys are City of London boys, as is Robert Mueller, the guy who's creating this Russiagate nothing thing. But see, Trump's the punching bag. He's a good punching bag because he's not a very likable guy. He's an egomaniac. He's narcissistic. So you put him in power. Then you put what they call the deep state, even though I hate that phrase, because let's just call it the City of London instead of the deep state. It's kind of like a coward's way to describe the City of London. It's not a deep state. There's nothing deep about it. It's the City of London is what it is. So let's call it that. So the City of London crowd, in other words, the Hillary Clinton, the real entrenched City of London crowd, they're on the outside now, and they can say, oh, we're the opposition. We're the stand and resist people, which is a total insult, by the way, to people like me and you, Rich, who've been standing and resisting for a long time now, while these people sit on their couches and hatch up these crazy stories about Vladimir Putin and take us to World War III. So Trump's irrelevant in that whole narrative. He doesn't even matter, but the whole point is they can use him as a punching bag to get to the Russians, to get to Putin. I
hear in your voice the frustration because, and by the way, I've not stood up or resisted anything, and I'm not fishing for compliments. I never have. I've got an ego like everybody else. All I do is speak to people like you. People like you have the balls to write books like the books you wrote. Put yourself out there, put yourself in the firing line. That's fantastic. The least a guy like me can do is provide a platform. That's the truth. We're going to talk about the City of London in a minute. You see, this is the kicker of this. I've been reading Dean for years now. Dean Henderson is entitled to think, at this stage, humanity should have moved away from two-party voting systems. At this stage, humanity should have come to the conclusion that we cannot vote our way out of this tyranny. We can't. And yet, they're nowhere near moving away from it, Dean. This is the killer, isn't it? They're nowhere near it.
Yeah, nowhere near. And by the way, Richie, you are a brother in arms, and you know, man, don't ever say that about yourself. But anyway, no, it's the thing is, it's like this whole election. You know, I wrote this article called "Illuminati Election Nightmare," and the whole thing was to herd people into these two camps, herd them back in. Because there was a lot of people straying. See, you know, when Ron Paul ran back in, I don't know, it was 12 years ago for president, the CIA actually called off their assessment that Iran had nuclear weapons. And a lot of people think it's because he was in the primary and he was a serious candidate. Well, of course, the Republican establishment made sure that he didn't go to debates. He couldn't even show up. Yeah. People like me, who were a left-wing Democrat, voted for him, you know, in the presidential election. And then come Bernie Sanders, you know, this time around. And, of course, the Democrat establishment did the same thing to him. No, the voting's over, people. There's no more voting. The voting, this is not a democracy. There's no democracy. We need to rush the gates of the lair of the dragon. And first we have to identify where the dragon lives, which we could talk about today. And that's the only way we're going to do it. And all it's going to take is the awareness that this exists, the awareness and the consciousness and the brave courage, the courage that it's either fear and then you're going to be with the devil, or it's courage and then you're going to be with God or Creator or whatever your good thing is, like Ray McGovern describing good the way he did. That's a great way to put it. You know, he does things for the good. He doesn't do things for results. I agree with Ray. I'm the same way. It doesn't matter if we win or lose, but you better get on the right side. First of all, you'll have a lot better life because karma is scientific. You know, there's new evidence about the Einstein theory that they missed a few things right at the end there about how things come back and, you know, kind of ping, and come back on you. So it's actually scientific that if you live a good life and if you fight the good fight, your life gets better. And I know that's true because when I'm in the fight, my life gets better. When I sort of get cynical about the common man, take it easy for a few, it gets worse. That's just the way it is. So I got like this gun to my head. You have to do it. You have to do it. Almost like it's a good gun. It's God, but it's God's telling me like, you got to go, Dean. There's no time for this other stuff. So we got to identify where the dragon lives and make people aware of that. All it is awareness. Then it can happen non-violently. It can happen tomorrow. It can happen tomorrow. But it's just about the awareness. Yeah, getting people out of their stupor. It's all about this Tavistock Institute, throwing all this self-hatred at us, throwing all this you're not powerful, you aren't worth anything, you suck. And people internalize it and they lose hope and they think there's no way we can ever beat these guys. Oh, we can beat them all right. We got them on the run right now, Richie. This last couple of weeks between Skripal, the fake poison in Syria, and Russiagate, the British City of London crowd has exposed themselves. And I'm seeing more stuff out there than I've ever seen my whole time here that the people are becoming aware that it is the Crown and the City of London, and before that the Holy Roman Empire and the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. About 8,500 people run that thing. And this is what we got to target. It's not about governments. You're not going to be able to elect anybody. They're going to take Corbyn down. You watch. I wish him luck, but they've already, They took Bernie down. They're going to take people down. They're going to take anybody down in the Western world, in the powerful G5, G8 countries, G7 countries, whatever it is, that has any chance. These people, this dragon. And so we have to slay the dragon before we have any chance of even getting candidates that are honest, that can win a primary. Because trust me, both Clinton and Trump were controlled by the Rothschild Rockefeller oil combine. And that's how they do it. They get it down to just the two people. They can trust both of them. They can live with either one of them. But I think they really thought Trump would be easier because of that punching bag scenario I just described.
Folks, check out hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. Subscribe to that. Dean Henderson is our guest, and he's going to be with me till pretty much the close of the programme. It's always good to have him on. A lot of tweets on this. Tweet at Richie Allen Show and engage with other people who are tweeting there. I really like that sentiment, and I do agree with it, that if you do decent things and if you put yourself into positions where you're doing nice things for people and you're engaging with people and working with people, it does have an effect. I do believe that. I just had one of those downers today, to be honest.
I hear you, man. It's easy to do. I get them all the time, Richie.
Yeah, it's, you're watching that happening in Palestine, and then you're seeing the BBC and Sky doing their jobs for once, and you're wondering what difference will that make, But 8.5 minutes past the hour. Let's talk about the City of London. Dean has written extensively, as much as anybody ever has, and I think, as well or better than anybody ever has, about the families, about the Illuminati, about the hidden hand. We've so many different words to describe what's really controlling events, around the globe, what's really keeping its boot really on the necks of us and everything else. Check out his books, Big Islander Bankers in the Persian Gulf, 4 Horsemen, 8 Families and Their Global Intelligence, and the other books I mentioned earlier on. You'll find them at hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. So sometimes I'll get an email from somebody, and this is genuine, I will get a genuine email from people saying, Richie, Rothschild Zionism and the families, and I know they married into the royal families, but I keep hearing about the City of London, and you get referenced all the time, Dean, thank God. People are reading you and listening to you. They say, what's this obsession with the City of London? Why is the City of London important, and how does it connect these families? Now, my friend, you're going to give us the Cliff Note version of this. Right? I think that's what we'll call it, the Cliff Note, right? So it's over to you, and I'm not going to interrupt unless I'm confused. Go ahead.
Yeah, feel free to. But so the City of London is a separate jurisdiction. It's not part of either the City of London or the nation of the United Kingdom. That's a legal entity unto itself. It's a city-state, kind of like Vatican City. Actually, the District of Columbia is set up in the same manner in this country so that they can get away with certain things there. But the difference is the City of London is kind of the lair of the global banking empire. Even the Queen, when she enters the City of London, has to bow to the mayor of the City of London. They have a separate mayor. It's not the mayor of London. It's the mayor of the City of London, which people that live in London will know. These are the guys that wear all the funny costumes, and it's because they're Freemasons. And you have to be a freeman to become what they call an alderman within the City of London. They have aldermen and they have committeemen. And this is how they run the City of London, then a mayor. So who votes in the City of London to decide what happens there is not people so much, but actually the banks. So like HSBC, votes. The people that work there don't vote, but the banks, the corporations, I suppose the biggest Freemason lodge in the world, which is also within the city. I suppose the Anglican Church, which is within the city, which also, is contributing and helping these people. They all get to vote. So there's no democracy. In fact, I heard a story where one fella, he actually ran for committeeman. He won by 80%, and then this alderman came in. He said, "Are you, to this guy?" And he said, "Well, are you a Freeman?" And he says, which means Freemason. And he said, "No, I'm not." And they kind of looked at his record, and they figured, well, he's not gonna, stand up for what we're doing here. So they actually threw the guy out and just put their own guy in. So there's no democracy in the City of London. So what happened? It all comes from the Holy Roman Empire. When the Magna Carta was signed, when Pope Clement the 13th burned Jacques de Molay on a cross in Italy, in Rome, in about the 13th century. The Knights Templar had been located there. They ran the Holy Roman Empire along with the Orsini family and the Augustino family, the Justinian family, the Holy Roman Emperors, the Dora family, who were Genoese financiers of the Habsburgs. See, this money actually is older than the Rothschilds. It's very interesting. And this is old Holy Roman Empire money, the Bonacosi family, the Luzzatto family. And anyway, so how did the Holy Roman Empire get this money? Okay, well, they got all this wealth because the Knights Templar and the other different Knights Hospitale, which is more the ones associated now with the City of London, they went and basically looted all the gold from indigenous people all over the world, because they were the first people to really have, like a navy and an army. They created the bond market. They charge pilgrims that wanted to go to the Middle East. They'd get them in debt, and then they started the whole idea of debt, really. Okay, so they hoarded all this wealth, the Ark of the Covenant, you name it. They took it all back to Rome, and that was the basis, the financial wealth, ill-gotten wealth, stolen wealth that created the Holy Roman Empire. So the Catholic Church, yeah, at times it's been infiltrated, especially the Vatican Bank, by these people. At times it's fought against these people. Back in those days, Pope Clement was definitely fighting against these people. So he burns this guy, Jacques de Molay, on a cross and said, "You're evil, you're the devil, and this is what we have to do." I don't have a problem with that, knowing what I know now. Even though I grew up Catholic and I used to think there was some crazy stuff, and I'm sure there was, but there was a reason that the Catholic Church did some of these things. Okay, so when that happened, the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitale, all the wealth, all the gold, moved from the Holy Roman Empire to Scotland and eventually to the City of London. And this when they signed the Magna Carta. Actually, it was about the 11th century, I think. And they created the City of London. This 1 square mile is what it is within the actual City of London, known as the City of London, a separate, geopolitical city-state entity. So this is old. So I think it was, William the Conqueror, who in the 1600s, they started the Bank of England within the gates of the City of London. And again, this is the wealth of the Holy Roman Empire, the wealth of the Templars, the wealth that was pillaged from all the indigenous people, all the tribal people, all the people of the world, really, before that. Because before that, we were free. We all knew how to do stuff. We could probably create energy just by walking. We could do all kinds of stuff. We could heal ourselves, fix ourselves. We knew the plants. We knew everything. And, in Egypt, and these people from Samaria come in from Babylon, from Ur, going to Egypt, topping off the pyramids, which were already there, built by indigenous people. They took credit for that. Start the Grand Lodge of Cairo. Out of that comes the Freemasons, comes the Muslim Brotherhood, and comes the Kabbalah, all the secret societies. Why do you need secret societies? Because at this point you formed a priesthood, which is hoarding the knowledge that all of us used to have and hiding it from us, hiding how to heal ourselves, hiding how to create free energy, hiding how to, survive with no money at all. And so they hoarded that knowledge. And, they call it sacred geometry and all that stuff. Well, it was already there. We all knew it. So they're so special. See, so anyway, they went to Rome. Now they're in the City of London. About the 1600s, the Bank of England fires up. A private central bank, basically they call them the Hofjuden, like Rothschild, come from Eastern Europe. He made his money pilfering from the House of Hesse, the German royal family, where he worked, then they start marrying into the crown. They start marrying these Sephardic Jews start marrying into the crown. So you have this alliance all of a sudden of the money, the old money, with the crowns, and that was all going on. And so the City of London keeps trucking along. 1913. This is when it starts to affect America big time. Although, they got their first initials, central bank in America too, the Bank of the United States, despite the attempts by Thomas Jefferson and others to fight against it. They got it in there, private central bank owned by the City of London, proud. It was repealed by Andrew Jackson. They sprung the 1812 war on him. It was there was an attempt by Abraham Lincoln when the City of London sprang the Civil War on us, back to South, tried to split this country up and take it back and put it under the crown. And, of course, they assassinated Lincoln after he issued the greenbacks, which was in opposition to the Federal Reserve note. It's not a U.S. dollar, it's a Federal Reserve note. And the Federal Reserve note is owned basically largely by 8 or 9 families, and they're all based in the City of London, their wealth. And so 1913 then comes along, and Woodrow Wilson is probably the worst president we've ever had. He's on Cleveland Dodge's yacht of the Phelps Dodge mining dynasty, and he talks him into this Federal Reserve idea. And we all know about Jekyll Island, where the Federal Reserve was formed with the Habsburgs, with the Rothschilds, with the Warburg interests involved. And Wilson also at that time, he pulled all the tariffs on U.S. Import tariffs, because see, the United States, when we first started, we had to have 100% tariffs on East India Company goods, and that's the crown. The East India Company, that was the crown. That's where the word crown agent comes from, which Trump is a crown agent, you see, and East India Company was the crown agent. And they went around the world and continued to colonize, they used slavery. They're the ones that started slavery. So this wealth in the city of London kept building and building on the backs of slavery, on the backs of people that weren't even paid. They went and stole all the resources from all corners of the world, and they hoarded it in the city of London. So 1913, Wilson does the Federal Reserve. They get their talents back on us. The tariffs go away, so it's free trade, because free trade is these guys' mantra. The whole idea of so-called free trade and free trade agreements comes from the city of London and the Freemasons and this mindset of mercantilism, which they rule the world with and still rule the world with. Don't kid yourself. And it's all about just pilfering people's stuff and not paying them for it. It's just they're criminals. I mean, they just have a criminal mindset, and they laugh about us because they think we're funny because they can do it and just get away with it. And then people will blame, it's the Americans, or it's the Israelis, or no. Israel has a role. Israel's role right now, the city of London's telling Israel invade Iran. The U.S. has a role. We're a Hessianized mercenary force for the city of London. That's our role. We're $24 trillion in debt. Our kids always die. We never get the oil contracts. You know who gets the contracts? Serco gets the contracts right now. Serco is a city of London crown agent. They use senior executive services here in the United States, which they've set up within the State Department and the Defense Department. They call it senior executive services. These are the people who are crown agents. So the Serco goes in to get all the USAID contracts in Syria. That way they can organ traffic out of Syria, no problem. And then all these private contractors, DynCorp or Booz Hamilton, where Snowden worked, or any of these contractors, they're all crown control. They're all crown agents. And so they're all just vulturing in on the war thing, and they let us do the fighting, but they get all the contracts, and guess where the money goes? So Kennedy tried to deal with it again with his silver currency, with the Federal Reserve, with the city of London. He got whacked for it.
Did he consciously try to take them on? I mean,
yes.
what you're describing now, did he understand what you've just told us? He understood that?
Yes, he did. He understood it. He talked about it, and he talked about the Freemasons, secret societies. He talked about a lot of things, and that's what. And of course they used Marilyn Monroe, the same FBI, which entraps our politicians. See, they got to get the goods on everybody. They got the goods on Trump. They got the goods on Clinton. Then they use it against them. So what they do to Kennedy, they did the whole Marilyn Monroe thing. See, so they got the goods on him, but that wasn't enough because he just kept going. He was tenacious. He just kept going. So yeah, he knew about all that stuff. He issued a silver-backed currency from the Treasury Department, from the government, not from a private family cartel, which is what the Federal Reserve is, an oligarchy-controlled thing, from a government thing, which is what we need, which is what we all need. So, and he got whacked. So up until about 1979, things kept going. Vietnam War, Nixon takes us off the gold standard. About 1982 is when the Eurodollar market really took off. See, before that, U.S. corporations were not allowed to keep U.S. dollars in overseas accounts at all, period. So, of course, the city of London wanted that to happen. So when Reagan came in, that's when it all started going downhill. 1982, the Eurodollar market went from like $178 million to like $2 trillion, and just almost in a year. And if you watch the stock market, when the stock market, it was flatlined from about 1939, the end of the Depression, right up until about 1980. It was, if you look at a chart of the U.S. stock market, it's pretty much flat. Nothing really happened. When this happened, when the Eurodollar market happened, stock market took off. All the corporations took their money out of America, began the deindustrialization of America, and instead of building here and investing here and paying their taxes here, they sent it where? To the city of London. So every major bank, including every major U.S. bank, their major trading headquarters is within this city of London. This is also where all the derivatives are traded, every single one. They're not traded anywhere else. City of London. And this is also where they set up an offshore banking network through the Bank of England. Only the Bank of England knows the owners of these accounts in Cayman Islands, in Bahamas, in Isle of Man, Isle of Jersey, all these different offshore places, that Panama, that have been set up. And so they set up these accounts under straw men where there's no owner. To public, even to the Cayman Islands, even to the UK regulatory people, there's no owner of these accounts. Only the Bank of England knows, and they can't really force them to reveal them because why? Because the Bank of England falls within the jurisdiction of the City of London. It's not even within the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. There's nothing the United Kingdom could do about it until that changes. So there's $50 trillion estimated to be in these accounts, offshore accounts, where nobody owns them. It's a Eurodollar. A Eurodollar is just a dollar traded outside the United States. And the Eurodollar is what's killing the United States economy and making us this huge debtor nation. So there's 50 trillion in these accounts. We know who owns them. It's the Rothschilds, it's the Warburgs, it's the Rockefellers. It's all these elites that own them, but it says nobody owns them. And that's why you get people like Bill Gates, who's the richest man in the world, according to Forbes magazine. Yeah, right. You can't even track down the wealth of these people, in other words, of the Lazards, of the David Wheels, of the Oppenheimers, of the Bonacosis. You can't even know about their wealth. That's how they got it sewed up. But it's all being done through this City of London and this offshore banking network, where they can declare all their losses, say, and corporations can do the same thing. They can go to Panama, where there's no corporate tax, declare all their gains in Panama, and through some subsidiary, Cargill or Exxon or anybody can do this, and then they can declare their losses in the UK or in the US, and they'll get a tax credit. They'll get money back from your government and from my government, see? And so this City of London, and this, of course, not only that, but of course, all the drug money, all the petrodollars, which just swoosh in from the Saudis and from Qatar. Qatar's controlled pretty much completely by the Rothschilds nowadays, through Genie Oil. This is why we're in Syria. Genie Oil, it's a company owned by, who's on the board? Jacob Rothschild's on the board. Dick Cheney's on the board. Larry Summers is on the board, former U.S. Treasury Secretary. Bill Richardson's on the board, former U.S. Energy Secretary.
New Mexico governor at one time, wasn't he?
New Mexico governor, exactly. Mary Landrieu, former Louisiana senator. This is a company that's found oil in the Golan Heights, and they're guarding it with the Israeli. That's why they're bombing across the border. That's why they have ISIS troops in the Golan Heights fighting against Syria, attacking Syria. This is also why along the Euphrates River now there's a corridor between Iraq and Syria where ISIS is able to travel freely. It's not ISIS anymore. That game, got kind of caught on to the Russians embarrassed them. So now it's the Turkish SPG fighters or whatever. It'll change. It was Al-Qaeda, and then it was, but it's all just CIA, British intelligence. We know who it is. Mossad, we know who it is. We know the gas came from Saudi Arabia. We know all about it. So they have to change, and it's a compliment to us that they have to change the names, like it can't be ISIS anymore because we're on them. But see, this is all going down out of the City of London. And so what I mean when I say there's an opening, the Skripal poisoning, Theresa May, who was pushing that? The British, of course, came straight from the City of London. They actually have a revelancer, they call it, who goes around the House of Commons, and the City of London's allowed to have this thing called I think it's the revelancer. Oh, no, it's the remembrancer. I'm sorry, the remembrancer. And this remembrancer is actually from the City of London, represented. He goes around the House of Commons and he listens and he tells people how to vote and this and that, And so they actually have this kind of agent within the House of Commons. And that's where Theresa May got the orders. Now, when Trump decided he was going to pull out of the Iranian situation, for example, see, there's all these lies. Like one of the lies is Tony Blair's a poodle of George Bush. No. No, George Bush is a bulldog for the City of London, more like. And it's not, it's the other way around. It's in the UK really, it has nothing to do with it. But it's another lie. And they have to keep these big lies going with these cute little phrases that they'll come out with. See, but it's all Tavistock Institute, mind control, behavioral science stuff, which is an arm of the City of London. There's three arms of it. There's a investment fund. There's what's called a bridge fund, which is where all the mind control comes out of Tavistock Institute stuff. They create racism in the right wing in America. They create kind of a transgender LBG agenda.
Multiculturalism and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's all Tavistock. The hippie movement was started by Tavistock to derail the real serious left in this country that was threatening to have a revolution along with the French and along with a lot of people. So
to divide and conquer. I want to try and synopsize. It's 27 minutes past the hour. It's brilliant listening to that, and I'm certainly not going to patronize you. There isn't any better way of explaining what you've just explained. It's brilliant, it's simplified, but I want to just synopsize it as well. Our guest is Dean Henderson, by the way, folks. Check out Henderson. Let me just bring it up there because my mind is blown. HendersonLeftHook.wordpress.com. It saves on my menu bar. HendersonLeftHook.wordpress.com. Right. Jump in any time and correct me. The way I see this is elite families, centuries ago, and centuries and centuries and millennia ago, created empires, right? And they used those empires to accrue wealth, to steal basically everything of any value. And of course, precious metals were the valuable commodities millennia ago, so gold. So this is the central premise of it. This is where it began. We're talking 2,500, 3,000 years ago, right? Maybe 5,000 years ago. That's where it began. I'm going to ask a question that might sound a bit stupid, but maybe there's no such thing as a stupid question. What evidence do we have going back thousands of years ago when these elite families began to create these empires? What evidence do we have that they were Satanists? Were they Satanists? Did they worship something dark? Were they a-religious or anti-religious, these people?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it really stems from this. There's metaphors in every holy book about this. In the Bible, which is, my tradition, I came out of that Christian tradition. So in the Bible, it's in the book of Genesis. It's right off the bat. We're talking about Adam and Eve. We're talking about, and whether or not, and what happened was they ate from the tree of knowledge. They ate the apple. Now it's not a real apple. It's like, look, we were created by God, by Creator. We were living in a perfect world. We had the chance to live in a perfect world. We were content with things. We were okay with things. We didn't have to go around changing the genes of things. We didn't have to go around messing with nature, thinking we were better, doing alchemy, all these things. But see, that's the metaphor. Adam and Eve were not content, and so they ate from the tree of knowledge. And that's where it started, Richie, in my opinion. It started when we were not content with the world we lived in, and we thought we were better than the world we lived in. And this is the whole premise of the Masons. I mean, they actually, Albert Pike, if you read his Morals and Dogma book, which is based on really old knowledge, thousands of years of this Freemason tradition, he talks very directly about being, bathed in the light of Lucifer. I mean, on and on and on, just direct talking about Lucifer.
Well, that's very interesting because
Lucifer is.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because some people believe, and we know who those people are. We have a lot of time for those people, whether we agree with them or not. But some people believe that they can nearly pinpoint an era when something otherworldly poisoned or perverted the course of our existence, the course of our development, right?
Mm-hmm. It could be. I mean, I think that's where it started. And I think when you have that sort of arrogance about your creator and that lack of humility, which these people have, because Lucifer's a fallen angel, that's what his deal was. He thought he was smarter than God, and he does, and he still does. And so this is where you get GMO. I think it really accelerated, Richie, in the late 80s when Bill Clinton was the Democrat president of our country and when Tony Blair was the Labor president, the new Labor president of your country. See, there it was New Labor, and here it was the Democratic Leadership Council. And both of those people were basing their thing on moving to the center, capitulating to capitalism, capitulating to the conservatives, and doing this triangulation thing. And if you look at what happened right about then, it was GMO food started. Although Bush it was Bush Clinton here. It was Bush and Clinton because Bush is the one that waived the exemptions on vaccines where pharmaceutical companies couldn't be sued really, but if their vaccines turned out to be killing people, which they are. Bush was the one that gave the pharmaceuticals a lot of exemptions, deregulated a lot of stuff. And then Clinton carried that forward. But it was kind of I think it was in the late 80s. And like I say, when the whole 82 when Reagan, when the money started going to the city of London, I think it just opened the floodgates. And then I think the internet, which came about when? Kind of late 80s, is that right?
Yeah, it would be.
You know? We didn't have school shootings before that. We didn't have school shootings before the internet existed. Where did it come from? It comes from the Pentagon. I think it opened some portal big time. And there's people talking about CERN and how CERN's cranking out this dark matter and putting it through the internet to affect us. I don't know how it works, but it just seems to me this artificial intelligence, this AI, could just about as easily be called alien intelligence. And I don't care if there's, these visible aliens that I can see, like grays or blonde.
Yeah.
I don't know about any of that. That's, who knows. But I know this, anything that's alien to this world, that's not natural, that doesn't obey natural law, which includes, people who sacrifice babies at a freaky mass, in some third world shithole. That's not natural anymore. And those people are enemies, and they're not only my enemies, but they need to be dealt with in whatever way, because that's alien to my world and your world that we inherited as a birthright. And God wants us to destroy those people, take them down, because they're destroying us. They're attacking us.
Yeah, we're
talking.
talking.
Can't stand by anymore, people, and take this.
We're talking.
They're attacking us.
We're speaking of Satanism, when we were talking about people like Edward Heath, there's no debate about that. The tabloid newspapers can throw out stories on a daily basis saying that claims against Edward Heath were a hoax. They weren't a hoax. I've spoken to Fiona Barnett in Australia. I've spoken to women in America who've never met, and they describe the same thing: sadistic, sick hunting parties by these elites. These families moved through the centuries, and they buried natural knowledge, and all that was good. I mean, David often talked about the Gnostics and how the Gnostics were wiped out, and how their teachings and their accumulated knowledge was hidden and was kept from us. People will say, skeptics listening to this will say, why, if you're only going to be around for 50 or 60 years, why weren't these elite families just enjoying the ill-gotten gains they had? Why were they so determined to change the future outside of the time when they would be alive? Why would they be hell-bent on changing things 100, 200, 300 years down the road? And that is an interesting question.
It is. You wonder what they think about their progeny and how they're going to live. Of course, their kids don't get vaccinated. Their kids eat organic. Their kids live in, but still, it's a really interesting question. The only thing I can think of, really, it's hard to understand this mindset, and I think that's why the general public has such a hard time believing there could actually be people on this earth doing these kind of things, like planning wars to make money, like cutting off people's heads in the Middle East just to create propaganda for no other reason. I mean, it's really hard to understand. But all I can think of is they really are drunk in this idea. Look, they call themselves the Illuminati. That's not some word, I made up, or David Icke made up, or you made up. That's their word from their documents. And what it means is that they believe they are the enlightened ones over all of mankind. Their bloodlines, they are so smart. There's 33 vertebrae in the human body, okay? And they're the head. And that's, it's all this crazy, wonky stuff. We're related to Jesus was it for a while, but that's just a sidetrack thing. They're not related to Jesus at all. They killed Jesus. These people killed Jesus. Not that they'd have any problem killing their own kids either, but and they have. But the thing is, the only thing I can think of is that they think they're so smart, and they see that again. It's just when you allow your mind to run amok. When you are not content with God's creation, when you are not content. See, contentedness is in short supply today. And they're pushing this discontent more than ever. I mean, you see ads on American TV now, showing you can be anything you want. You can put the little dog ears on and get on the internet, or you can, it's almost like they're just fragmenting everybody's psyche, and they're telling what the message is. It's the same as it always was. You're no good, so you have to buy a Maytag washer or whatever, or some toothpaste. So you have to buy that, and then you'll be better. But now it's literally, you're no good, so you should be a multiple personality person, whatever you want. You don't have an inner soul. You're nothing. I mean, you can just be whatever you want, which is a lie, which is the biggest lie, because everybody has their own unique personality, their own unique core soul that you were given by God. And don't ever let anybody tell you different.
Yeah, or whatever God is. Dean, I'm going to take a very quick break. This is flying by. Look at this. It's 23 minutes to the top of the hour. The break isn't long. Dean is our guest today. This is very important. When we come back, I'm going to ask him a question about the European Union, because people get confused then, and they say, well, this city of London, if this is so important, what's the European Union all about? I know you have an answer for that. And then, inevitably, people will wonder, if the city of London is where it's at, and it's the command centre, there must be a person in charge, and people have been asking me to put that to you. Who is in charge of it? Is it the Queen? Is it the Rothschilds? This is important stuff, folks. You know, you're not hearing this anywhere else. Well, you are if you're following Dean Henderson, you know, on Dean's website, which I've already tweeted out and I will do again. Quick break, Dean. Thanks for staying with me. We'll come back and we'll talk about the European Union, and we'll talk about, well, what's the hierarchy? Who are the names? Who are these people, if we can name them? Or maybe these people have never been named, the people right at the centre of it. This is your Richie Allen Show for Monday, the 14th of May 2018. Back in 2 minutes.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever.
Introducing the H2O app, a powerful water structure and application that programs vibrational energies into water through the use of different sound frequencies. Once programmed, the use of water for drinking, cooking, bathing. Give it to your friends and colleagues or spread it around the garden. The list goes on. It's not just water that the app can be used for either. It's great for programming crystals too. The H2O app is free to download and is available on both Android and Apple platforms. For further information, go to h2oapp.online.
Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Welcome back to the programme. It's exactly 20 minutes to the top of the hour. We've got Dean for about 12 to 14 more minutes. Thanks for all the tweets on this. Henderson, lefthook.wordpress.com. Check out Dean's books there. They're groundbreaking. And this is proper cutting edge stuff, this. It really is. I'm just saying to Dean there, there isn't another station in this country tonight talking about this. But I suppose that's a ridiculously stupid thing to say. Why would any radio station in this country talk about anything like this or contemplate it? Dean, the European Union then. I've always believed that these elites, to better achieve their aims, want to control the many through very, very, very few organisations. And the European Union was a great step towards a one world government. What do you think of that, and how does that relate to the control centre that is the City of London?
No, yeah, I totally agree with you, Richie. It's all about, consolidating and homogenizing and making everybody more, look, these people, they're Hittite herders is where they come from. And these descendants of Caesar we're talking about, they learned to herd people. So they put sheepdogs out there, a couple of them, say like Mark Zuckerberg's a sheepdog, right? And then they just herd us. And they use Facebook to herd us. So they use other sheepdogs. Just a couple sheepdogs is all it takes. So the European Union was formed, 1993, I think it was, a Maastricht Treaty in 28 countries. And it was all about, herding people into this homogenization of culture where, it was hailed as this great thing where it would connect everybody. But actually it just herds people into a more manageable, situation for these bankers. Now, where I diverge from a lot of people, and I really think the Brexit, which was, by the way, funded by Cambridge Analytica more than anyone else, Robert Mercer, the same people that got caught, with Facebook rigging over 200 elections. It's a behavioral sciences thing. I think it's definitely British intelligence is what it is. It's a British intelligence. It's a Crown agent is what it is. Cambridge Analytica, it's a Crown agent. There's another one called Oxford Analytica, by the way.
Yeah.
So I think they funded Brexit, and I think the reason they're doing this is because they want to get the City of London one step away from any more democracy. See, they like democracy when it's just kind of a myth, when it doesn't exist, and they could say, "Oh, the EU, it's so democratic, and let's hold hands and agree with everything."
Which it isn't,
nobody
of
ever
course.
does.
Yeah.
But when it gets in the way of them, they don't want anything to do with it. So they live in the City of London where there's no democracy, no jurisdiction. So they want to be one step, I think, removed yet. Now they're already removed from the UK, but they also want to be removed one step away from the EU. Why? Well, for one thing, the EU passed a bunch of banking regulations that would have affected them. For another thing, there's more and more countries in the EU, like Sweden, like Norway, who are coming out against Israel and their policies. And the final thing is it's just one more oversight thing that they have to deal with. So they formed it, yes. They herded everybody into it, yes. And then now they're saying we want to get out of it. And they're going to hail it as some liberation for the UK is what they're doing, but it's not. I don't think it is at all. I think they're going back to the old mercantilist system with Trump, where it can be sort of this just Anglo-American, Israeli-Saudi system, busting up all these, they just, honestly, they do things when it's convenient. So there's times, like in Yugoslavia, where it was convenient to break that state up. Why? Because it was a socialist state unified by Milosevic, a socialist, just like Syria was unified. All the Sunni, Shia, Alawite Christians were unified by Assad under socialism. So they want to break those things up into little places where their little capitalists can operate and give contracts to ExxonMobil. See, so break those up. But once they get them in their camp, into their fascist camp, then they want to herd them together again.
Well, see, this is really interesting now, because you've acknowledged that they created the European Union.
Absolutely.
And as you said, a great way of describing it, they herded everybody into it on the ridiculous promise of peace in Europe, no more wars amongst European countries, and a rising tide lifts all ships, we'll do business together, everything will be hunky-dory. And it was never anything but a fascist dictatorship. That's what it was, which you've acknowledged. Some of our listeners will say they don't see why they'd want to break it up, but you've said that they might want to break it up, or at least the City of London pull away from it, and maybe in 2, 3, 4 years' time, maybe in 10 years' time, replace it with another club of types, of sorts, right? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. I think the ideal situation for the City of London is, like I say, you heard, like they'd love to see a North American Union too, with Canada, Mexico, United States all together. And they've tried. They're working on that. They're working on an African Union. They're working on our Union, Central, all this stuff, right? So it's just, to them, it's a market. But when you're the oligarchy, and by the way, the oligarchy literally lives in the City of London. I mean, all the Saudi kings, princes retire there. All the this is where Mikhail Friedman of Alpha Bank's going to go. This is where a guy from Bangladesh named Ershad, who pilfered about $400 billion from that country. See, the IMF loans them money. This is how it works. IMF says, well, actually, the World Bank owes them money, because these people, of course, control the World Bank. Then the IMF says, oh, you didn't do that right, so we're going to privatize this industry and hand it over to the City of London Corporation called, Monsanto will get it this time, let's say, or Royal Dutch Shell maybe will get it this time. And then they pay off the elite, in Bangladesh's case, Ershad, and Ershad steals the money that's a loan. So the loan still stays on the book for Bangladesh. They're on the hook for $400 billion or whatever. But Ershad takes half of that and moves to the City of London. And it's literally a physical address. In other words, the City of London is becoming a physical address for the global oligarchy. We know where they live, Richie. They live in the City of London. They're buying houses there. They're the ones that can afford it, for crap's sakes. Nobody can afford to live there. They can. That's where they live. So it's really easy. And maybe they'll build a big old wall or something. I don't know. But they better. They better build a big wall, is what I'm thinking. Because there's going to come a time when we just have to show up at the gates of the City of London, and that's just what we're going to have to do if we're going to get serious about changing anything. And we're going to have to liberate that area of all these Satanists, these Freemasons, these pedophiles, these despicable, satanic people.
Who's running it in London? Who's in charge of it? There must be. We talked before about comparing it to the Corleone crime family. Who's Don Corleone in this scenario?
Yeah. It's my best guess to be Lord Jacob Rothschild at this point. There's some people that say they're worth over 100 trillion, just that one family. But there's no telling, Richie, because like I said, this thing goes back to the Holy Roman Empire. And can you imagine the money that some of these families from that era must have. You know, and again, we're talking about these old Venetian banking families. Here's one to check out: Kissinger Associates. Okay, of course, Henry Kissinger. He's the sheepdog. He's the biggest agent of the crown in the United States. He still is. He goes to National Security Agency every morning and apparently tells them basically what to do. And in your neck of the woods, it's this Lord Carrington. He's the big mover and shaker as far as these are the Soros is too. He's a money guy. But as far as creating terrorism, creating ISIS, creating war with Iran, it's Kissinger over here. It's Carrington over there. Well, they co-founded Kissinger Associates. Okay, so if you want to find out some players, you look at that board. And the board of Kissinger Associates, guys like Mario de Urso of the Kuhn Loeb banking dynasty.
Yeah.
Guys like LED Rothschilds on the board of the AG of Venice, Accurizoni Generale, AG. And this is a board member, and on that board, this is board of that board. Then you got like Baron Pierre Lambert, the Lambert family. You got Baron August von Fink, richest man in Germany. You got LED Rothschild. You got Jocelyn Hambro of the Hambros banking, dynasty. You've got Pier Paolo Luzzatto Facchis of the Luzzatto family in Italy. You got Frano Orsini Bonaccorsi of the Orsini family, which actually had members of that family that sat on the Holy Roman Empire Senate, the Roman Empire Senate. These are the biggest shareholders of AG are Lazard Freres and Bank Paribas. Bank Paribas is a total Rothschild bank. But and then Paribas is controlled also by the Warburgs,
And they live forever, don't they? All of these people you've just described, they live to great, great ages, these people.
Yeah, and they plan to marry, their kids marry each other, and that's how they continue the dynasty. They absolutely will not accept. Like, did you know, here's an interesting one. Ivanka Trump was actually dating Nathan Rothschild for a while. That's Lord Jacob Rothschild's kid, man who might be the most powerful in the world. He was dating Ivanka Trump. He actually tweeted something out, check it out, about how Ivanka should run for president. And maybe she will. If Donald behaves himself and does the bidding of the Rothschilds, maybe she will. And we'll have a whole new dynasty to go with the Bushes and the Clintons. But no, it wasn't, the Trumps are they're like trailer trash to the Rothschilds, so that wasn't going to happen.
It's just frontmen. It's the Philip Green from the movie Casino scenario, isn't it? They're just Philip Green, I made this analogy. I did a show 2 years ago, and I don't often hit on something, kind of poignant. I don't, but I did a show about Philip Green about 2 years ago. I just had this epiphany that Philip Green is brought in to take the loan from the Teamsters, and Joe Pesci does the brilliant narration. Philip Green wanted to believe that the Teamsters gave him $172 million for the Tangiers Casino because he was smart. No, they gave it to him so that he could be a front man, so that the bosses back east could run it. I'm going to argue, just before we run out of time, I'm going to argue with you about the European Union. We don't argue enough, you and me, my friend.
There you go. We need to argue.
We need an argument, don't we? We need to argue. Do you know, Rothschild Zionist agents are in the process of dismantling Brexit. Now, they're not just in the process of it. They have succeeded. Brexit isn't actually going to happen. So this is where there's... it's not that there is a contradiction in what you're saying. I wouldn't be as rude as to say that, but it's a but. It's a big but in what you're saying, because I'm absolutely convinced there will be no leaving the European Union by the UK. And, we've already conceded we're going to stay in the customs union, which means free movement of people, wages stay low, anti-competitive practices. So why are Rothschild Zionist agents not trying to stop Brexit, but seemingly succeeding in doing that?
Yeah, I don't know, Richie, and you could be right. All I know is Rothschild Zionist agents were the one that funded the whole movement, and that's at Robert Mercer and Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, and you make a good argument there, you see. This is the...
I don't know, but you totally probably got a better handle on that than I do, because you're sitting right there.
I don't at all.
And I'm the only person that thinks this. I honestly think, I don't know anybody else who's ever said they thought this except me. And I just have gut feeling about it too. I get these gut feelings. But I also got the Cambridge Analytica. But you could be right. It could be a good thing, and they they do so many weird things, man. They'll fund both sides all the time. And they could have been funding the other side too, or they fund it and they get people's hopes up, and then they pull the plug on it, and somehow that's supposed to, it's Tavistock stuff where it demoralizes us. Who knows? They play all these games. So you could be right. It could be a good thing. I mean, it would be a great thing if it meant freedom and independence for the UK. But I'm just afraid it doesn't. But I could be wrong.
No, but you talked about. I mean, you've been right. You've been right so much over the years, and I'm certainly not claiming that I'm right. I am confused by it because you make a very valid point that I cannot ignore, and that is that these people have funded the pro-Brexit, Let's Leave or whatever they were bloody well called. There were several of these organisations, and you talked about Cambridge Analytica and Oxford Analytics. So this is confusing at the very least. So no, you're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong at all. I'm just saying it's kind of mind blowing.
Because you make a good point too, Richie, and I think it needs to be investigated for sure. It needs to be followed. It needs to be, let's get to the bottom of it. It's just like anything else. There's so much stuff, man. I tell you what, just to get. And that's, it's by design, layer upon layer. Like they probably funded Brexit, and then, like I say, maybe that's the whole point, is Tavistock Institute mind control. Well, let's fund the Brexit, and then we'll demoralize them by taking it away. Who knows? It could be. I mean, this is really how these people work. They are so sophisticated. They use algorithms. They use, they got psychiatrists, psychologists, which is all evil professions, by the way. We're working for them night and day to basically alter people's behavior. It's all about altering our behavior, altering our minds, altering our souls in the end, people. So this is what we got. We got to buck it up. We got to fight. It's a war. Put your boots on and act like it's a war. This is what I'm telling people lately. We're on an offensive right now, Richie. This is an offensive we're doing here, okay? This is the start of the offensive. I've seen more stuff about the City of London, about the Crown, about, Julian Assange put something out about the Queen the other day, finally. I'm telling you, if we get the awareness, if we get the courage, and if we just continue this offensive, we can change the world, my friend. We can change the world, all you people out there, and we need to change the world. This could be the last best chance we have before it just gets really crazy.
Folks,
these people need to get rounded up.
Listen, mate, it's always great to have you on. Go to hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. If you haven't read Dean's books, I cannot recommend them highly enough. They are compelling and vital reading. Read a book for a change. Get off your phone and your tablet. Get away from the TV and read. Read books. I can't stress that enough. Thanks for doing that. That's compelling stuff, incredibly interesting, on point, smart. It will, of course, shock a lot of people hearing that if they're hearing it for the first time. But if they just look into the individual points made by Dean, do a little bit of homework yourself, you'll find out that he's absolutely on the money. Thanks again for doing that. We'll pick this up again in a month or so, Dean. I really appreciate your time. You have no idea. Thank you.
Honored to know you, Richie.
Speak soon, Dean. The great Dean Henderson, live on the line to us today from his home state of Missouri. Top man. Check out hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com.